cybersecurity and things of that nature. That was extremely informative. In that vein, I like to know my audience better. So before you leave, if you would give me your mother's maiden name and the name of the first street you grew up on. I'd really appreciate that on your way out. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We are talking today about women in leadership positions. I mean, it can be, leadership in general, but specifically, obviously, we're talking about women in leadership positions. I am Brendan Ramirez. I am the owner and CEO of Pan American Behavioral Health Services, a community mental health care center. We've been around about 10 years. We operate here in the Orlando area, Kissimmee, and another office fairly new over in the Lakeland area out towards Tampa. So before we get into this, I'd like to defer our little esteemed panel up here to introduce themselves. Aimee?
I'm Aimee Gonzalez. I'm a mental health therapist with Pan American.
And I'm Carlos Melgarejo. Thank you so much for having us. And I'm also a mental health therapist at Pan American.
So we're just going to go through a few topics here. Feel free, whenever you like, shoot your hand up, Spanish, English, whatever, whatever your preferred method of communication is, feel free for that. So let's start off by talking about resilience. Women in particular are renowned for your and their resilience. We often celebrate that resilience and the hard work, but we don't talk about the emotional toll that can take. So what I would like to ask the panel first is, what are some common signs of burnout and emotional fatigue that women, particularly in leadership positions or in the business world or what have you?
I'd say be feeling very overwhelmed, even by small, simple tasks, not feeling accomplished, doubting yourself a lot, isolating yourself, feeling detached from everything that's happening from the people around you and what you're doing.
I found that most of women show like emotionally numb, even though they could be smiling. They are, they have like emotional fatigue, and it's shown by research that, for example, here in the United States, 43% of women are more likely to be stressed, but they have to, still perform at their job place and everything. Puerto Rico is like 60%. So,
Yeah. And, to punctuate that, I think in my experience, what I've seen over the years is, your women and men, but your own immune system, that could be hidden. That could be something that's hidden that you don't pay enough attention to. Your own immune system. You start getting sick, immunocompromised, things like that. These things they're interrelated. All of these things are interrelated. And when we talk about things like stress, when we talk about things like emotional well-being, I don't think that we talk about it exactly the way that we should. When was the last time you called in sick to work because you were stressed out? You don't, right? Like, nobody does that. And the problem is that we're so used to treating illnesses from the neck down differently than those from the neck up. And we have to get rid of that. We have to get rid of that stigma. So in that vein, for the next question that I would like to ask is, what are some things that we can do to start getting rid of those stigmas? Women, especially in leadership roles, women are expected to perform at a certain level. There's that expectation that you stay performing at a certain level. So what are some of the things that we can do to kind of try to get rid of those stigmas?
And it's great that you mentioned that, because this signs of stress sometimes are seen like weaknesses. If you are stressed, what people would think hey, why are you doing that? You're weak, or you don't do your job as it's supposed to be done. But being stressed is not a weakness. It's also a response of our bodies and response of your bodies as well, and for things that are that our bodies are dealing with. So to tear down that stigma, it's important to celebrate rest and recovery, understanding that it's to have that time of rest is as important as that time of being productive as well. So it's important to rest and create spaces of vulnerability. There's nothing wrong with being stressed or with being tired. It's important to have that, safe space to talk to my family, with my coworkers about vulnerability.
Yeah, having a support system is definitely very, very important.
We can't pretend that there aren't cultural differences to this. So we're going to acknowledge that there are cultural differences and cultural limitations to some degree with this. So how would we say, how would you recommend that women, especially Hispanic and Caribbean women, kind of respond culturally, in a culturally appropriate manner to some of the challenges that are faced?
I think we have to set our limit and be very vocal about it and communicate them and be very protective of ourselves, Without, yeah, because I think society expects us to work like we have no family and have a family like we have no job. But as women, we work until this time, and it's like, okay, here goes the other part of the day. So just handling things one at a time and just standing your ground.
Now, let me follow that up with asking, in particularly in Caribbean and Hispanic households, do you think that there's a greater expectation for the woman to take on a greater parental role after work?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're the default parent. My phone rings all the time. His doesn't, like everything is like, okay, just sometimes even if you don't take care of yourself, having to decide what's for dinner becomes an overwhelming task. Like, oh my God, what am I going to cook? And you're thinking about that while you're at work, having to focus about things at work. So yeah, we're like up there having to make decisions nonstop. Even at nighttime, you're already thinking about the next day.
So for women that are balancing leadership roles, family obligations, community expectations, emotional ambition, I'd like you both to weigh in on this. What are some healthy ways to go about setting those boundaries?
And then this reminds me of an experience that I had in therapy. I had a woman in therapy, and I asked her, "Hey, what's your dream? What's your main goal?" And she was like, "I want my kids to be this and that." And I'll say like, "That's beautiful. But those dreams for your kids. So what are your dreams? Your personal dreams?" And it's like this self-sacrifice culture that we have, and especially that women have, sometimes creates more like a higher expectation rather than a choice. Most of you women are expected to have high performance at the place that you work at your professional area, but also you're expected to be high performance, to have high performance at home. And a good way to set up boundaries is by having like clear and honest communication with your partner, with your kids, with your co-workers, and it's also a responsibility for us, for men, to actually be there, and support them. And the home tasks are not exclusive for women. It's also for us to do something. Okay, if you're tired, you had a hard day, I have to take care of this, because it's not that I'm supporting you, it's not that I'm helping you. I'm part of this team, so I have to do something as well. So it's like honest communication, I would say.
I think you also have to have a realistic workload. Be able to say no, which, say no. It's okay to say no and protect your time. After this time, this is my time or whatever but yeah, realistic workload, say no. It's okay. Say no.
Yeah, I mean, be honest with yourself. Right? Be honest with yourself and set realistic expectations for yourself. I think expectations are just that. Anybody can have expectations. Everybody outside you can have expectations for you. I think, you can't control what other people's expectations of you are. But what you can control is your own standards. What's your standard for yourself? You can control that. You can't control the outside expectations, but you can control your standards. And I think a good starting point for that is, what are your own limitations for yourself? And start with that as your boundary. So whether we're talking about personal, professional, or even institutional, what do you believe is most essential, or some of the things that could be most essential to sustain the long-term mental wellness for women in leadership positions, women in general, and avoid that burnout, whether the burnout be professional, personal, or otherwise?
Take care of yourself. Health, go to the doctor. If you don't take care of yourself, if your cup is empty, you're not able to give to others. So eat healthy, movement, exercise, hydrate, take time off. It's hard, but it's okay to take time off.
Yeah, and I always encourage my clients and the people that surround me to ask themselves the question that, am I honoring myself with this that I'm doing, or am I, abandoning myself? So that's something to reflect on. If I want to take care of others, I need to start taking care of myself first.
Oh, and setting boundaries and then asking for help when you actually need it, which we don't tend to until we feel like we're drowning. So ask for help in advance so you don't drown.
Yeah, I mean, those are all wonderful ideas. They're fantastic. I would also say, and I believe that in my experience in this field, that this can be particularly difficult for women. Surround yourselves with positive influence. Surround yourselves with positive influences, personally, professionally, institutionally. What do we mean institutionally? Church, school, and school education is another thing. Continuing education. Never stop learning, right? Because the more that you learn, the more that you can pass over to others, the more you learn about yourself as well. So I think positive influences, putting distance between negativity in yourselves and surrounding yourselves with positivity, which again, I believe is more difficult for women than it is for men. I think that that's very important in the context of what we're talking about here. What daily strategies, in particular for women, can they do to protect mental health and sustain success long term, rather than pushing and finding in a place of burnout or another kind of problematic situation?
Yeah, definitely. I have something that I call daily check-in, and it's like every morning, like have time for yourself. I personally try to practice a lot of meditation, so I do like in my morning before my wife wakes up, and I have to start with everything. I do meditation. But I would say like daily check-in. I might start with a question that how am I feeling today? What are my plans for today? What do I want to accomplish today? So that having that kind of check-in with yourself might help a lot for you to not only to plan your day, but also to check how strong you feel that day, and not to have like higher expectations if you are in a low level of energy, or maybe if you had some expectations and you feel like you are supercharged, you will be able to accomplish even more than what you were expecting that day. So like maybe a daily check-in, it'll be a really good way to start. And I'm like, I believe a lot in rituals, so creating a quiet ritual for you to, just practice breathing exercises and, journaling, or this kind of mindfulness techniques are really important and helpful for you to not burn out.
And just start, like, a lot of the times, like when I think of my childhood, I remember everybody eating and my grandma was the last one. I don't remember when she would go to sleep and I would wake up and she was already awake. And I'm like, when does this woman eat and sleep and rest? Like, how does she do that? What I've learned now is that if I don't eat, sleep, and rest, I can't take care of my toddler who has the energy of like 50. So taking care of myself, like your health, go to the doctor, eat well, hydrate, very important, sleep and exercise. When you're feeling overwhelmed, go for a walk in the morning or at night, because the heat now is just ridiculous. But, like connect with nature, do something fun for yourself, not for everybody. Plan something for yourself that is going to bring you joy. So then you can be for everybody else. And ask for help. If you feel too much, go to therapy. I know everybody's like, therapy, I know, loco. No. Talking helps. Sometimes we just need to talk and just let it all out. And then, okay, I can do this.
Absolutely. And to echo that, I would say unplug. Unplug. At some point during the day, evening, night, whether it's a half hour after lunch, whether it's half an hour before bedtime or something like that, put down the screen, put down the phone, turn off the phone, just disconnect yourself from everything that we've become so connected to. And enjoy the quiet. I mean, believe it or not, when I worked at DCF, Department of Children and Families here in Florida, there was a whole room that was always dark off to the side, that at any point an employee could get up, go in that room, sit down on the couch, and you could spend 30 minutes in it. And they mandated that the lights be turned off and nobody could congregate outside the door and talk. DCF to say that they were like light years ahead of the future. So thank you to everybody that's up here. I know everybody's starving and really wants to get to lunch at this point. So if you have any questions, they'll take them now. If not,
They'll be alone.
good.
Thank you. Lo digo en español. Porque hay mucha gente en español. Gracias por ¿verdad? Lo que trajeron. Tremendo. Thank you so much. But something that was not mentioned, but I it's helpful for me. Y yo estoy en el gobierno, that's a terrible thing. It's 24/7. So it's the music. Turn on the music, and if you like to dance, you do exercise at the same time, and you sing. So there's a lot of things there that you do in one time. So that release your stress as well. So también te relajas. Esto era lo que quería decir, pero estuvo muy bueno. Gracias.
Gracias, María.
Oh, y otra cosa, a veces uno no tiene ganas de hacer nada, ¿verdad? A veces uno dice, ¿qué vamos a hacer? What are we going to do? Because we don't feel like it. We tend to feel depressed, but that's what we say, but it's not depression, but I'm just saying, because you're tired, no has dormido bien, como ya dijo, y todo, pues you have to force yourself to do it, porque esto es lo que entonces después te va a enfermar, porque empieza por ahí, por la mente, después físico, and then you're done. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
That's great.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Cecilia, estoy conectando. ¿Ah? Luis. Oh, the way for you.
El bolsillo está bueno, Luis.
Keep on Hollywood. There you go. Nice.
So we're going to be heading out to lunch next door.